And thank you to all my colleague that are here. I know that I'm here at the tail end, but thank you to all our witnesses for appearing before us today to talk about these very important issues. I am thrilled to see my bill, the Charlotte Woodward Organ Transplant Discrimination Prevention Act, included in today's hearing. Now, as many people know, that this bill, it was named for Charlotte Woodward, who is with us here today somewhere. There she is. Hi, Charlotte. An adult woman, an amazing woman with Down syndrome who is with us and is with us today because of a life-saving heart transplant over 12 years ago. Now, sadly, not all individuals with disabilities have that same opportunity. This issue is one that has become personal for me. As one of my constituents, Bobby and Josh Saramento, they are loving and devoted parents in Ocala, Florida. They lost their son, baby Zion, who was born with Down syndrome and in need of a heart transplant at just 6 months old. Zion's family were told that his life did not have the same value as mine or yours, and was subsequently denied a heart transplant because of his disability. This is unacceptable. Ooh, I get ya. Charlotte's bill would seek to prevent this type of discrimination from happening and creates an avenue for timely relief at the Office of Civil Rights at the Department of Health and Human Services for those who have been discriminated against. I want to thank my colleagues across the aisle, particularly Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, for leading this important priority alongside me. And of course, at this time, I would like to submit a letter of support for this bill led by the National Down Syndrome Society and signed by over a dozen disability advocacy and organ transplant stakeholder groups. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to jump right into a few questions. Ms. Whitten, where are you? There you are. You mentioned in your response to Representative Dingell that it is clear that legislation is needed in states that do not have a non-discrimination law in place for individuals with disabilities. For patients who are discriminated against, could you please briefly explain what relief a bill like ours would provide?
Yes, thank you so much. And also just from a background, my daughter who's 20 who has Down syndrome, when reading about the history of say baby doe, where a life-saving procedure was feeding a baby with Down syndrome in a hospital and legislation had to be passed so that you couldn't starve a baby to death. I mean, that was just in the 70s, and then Willowbrook was only shut down in the 90s. So, we've got this whole human rights thing going on, and so your work, Congresswoman, is just so meaningful for our families and for me. Yes, it's important to be able to actually litigate, right? If you're being discriminated against, going to the Office of Civil Rights and presenting your case. So that wasn't possible before, certainly in the 10 states that didn't have any laws, and then the consistency of which to do that now at a federal level is just profoundly impactful.
Now, and one of the concerns that we've heard repeatedly on the bill is regarding what effect the provisions would have on the current practices of physicians. So how would this bill impact, or preserve, I should say, preserve a physician's role in the transplant process?
It's important. We're not getting in the physician's business and telling them how to make decisions, but we have found again and again that there are people, physicians, who have, based solely on the diagnosis of Down syndrome or disability, said, no, this person is not qualified to be a recipient. And so this addresses that. It doesn't take away the ability to look at the whole medical profile and make a decision, based on how that transplant will, be received over time. But that's what we're doing. We're getting the worst discrimination out there, and we're still preserving the rights of the medical professional.
Thank you for making sure that that is on the record, that we still preserve that autonomy. But as a follow-up, on top of that, 2019 National Council on Disability report highlighted that many transplant stakeholders believe individuals with Down syndrome cannot adhere to post-operative care. Therefore, they are risky candidates for transplants. Is that an accurate assumption?
No. I think that with people with Down syndrome, many of them have a support system that has to be taken into account. And if you just said, oh, this person, can they do self-care? You know, I mean, like, I don't know that I could do the self-care or that a lot of people could do the self-care. We all have a support system. So this law or this legislation will address the fact that there has to be a support system looked at, not just that individual.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all of the wonderful advocates in attendance today. I believe Charlotte Woodward will be a member of Congress one day, so shout out, and thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I yield.